Good morning. It's Tuesday, which means it's patrol day, and you've got a lot of ground to cover. You roll out of bed, stretch, get under clothes. And that weighs 7 pounds, including your boots. Grab your rifle, AR-15 with a sling, red dot sight and a white light. Don't forget your handgun and your ammo. 7 magazines to the rifle, 3 for the pistol. That's 18.9 pounds. Now you grab your load-bearing gear. On that, you're going to have all your pouches for your ammo, you're going to have utility pouches, your backpack, and now you're up to another 8 pounds. Now you need to pack your water. Well, you're going to carry 2 quarts in canteens and another 2 liters in the pack. Another 8.5 pounds. And 24 hours of food. It's 1.6 pounds. Now you need to grab your survival gear, like your multi-tool, and your compass, and your whistle, your signal kit. Another 3.1 pounds. Your PPE, your shooting glasses, and your ear pro. It's another 2 ounces. And then you give yourself about 4 pounds worth of extra mission gear to include flashlights, digging tools, flares, all that fun stuff. In all, you're carrying 52.7 pounds of kit. You're glad you put all that time in at the gym before Scenario X, because you're going to wear that 52 pounds for the next 8 hours while you walk around your patrol route, which you cover somewhere around 10 miles. You think to yourself, that's a lot of weight. You never would have thought of doing that yourself. And there's been several people on the team who couldn't hack it even early on in Scenario X, and they've gotten a little bit better. Slowly, you get it on, you walk out the door, and trudge along. This is all about Scenario X fitness. And welcome to the Everyday Marksman, the podcast where it's all about tactical skills for living a more adventurous life. I'm Matt.
I'm Allison.
And our website is everydaymarksman.co. There you're going to find today's show notes, as well as all of our other episodes, our articles, our YouTube channel, and as always, our awesome community of marksmen. Thanks you for joining me. So welcome, Allison.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be back. I really enjoy doing these podcasts.
Yeah, I really enjoy having you as well. And one of the reasons that you are back today is because we are digging into the fitness topic once again, which I know is something near and dear to your heart.
Yep. Pull day tomorrow at the gym, baby.
Pull day. So actually, like aside from that, so I know you've gone through a lot of different fitness rotations and kind of how you do things. So what does your current structure look like?
My current structure is a 5-day-a-week program. I do 1 pull day, a push day, 2 leg days. And right now I'm doing a kettlebell circuit day, but I was doing rucking. I kind of just do more of a high-intensity cardio day.
And that is awesome. That is why I love you. Unfortunately, I am once again on the injured list. So
womp womp.
Yeah, womp womp for me. So for no particular reason either. It's one of those silly things. It's not even like a sprain. I don't know what it is, but bottom line, it's caused me to stop and think, or just worry that I'm getting too old for this.
I hope not, because I'm older than you.
Not by much. All right. So on to the actual topic. So we're talking about fitness today, and I want to set this up by talking about the last episode. In the last episode, I dug into a hierarchy for buying equipment. Now, at the lowest level was the fundamentals and everyday carry, and the hierarchy went up from there, going through patrol, survival, observation, combat equipment, and beyond. And throughout the entire thing, I was tying the importance of training and how to use all this stuff effectively. But I think there was something that we didn't really touch on that is still really important. And when I did the live stream version of that, it actually came up in a conversation. So I wanted to come back and address it again. And that is fitness, because none of this works without, the appropriate level of physical fitness.
It's very true. Your body, if it's not strong enough, that's your best tool right there. It's just your body.
Yeah. So Field Marshal Montgomery, old British general back World War II. And if I'm wrong, I know the historians will comment to tell me I'm wrong.
They're going to come for you.
They're going to come for me in the comments. Said, man is the first weapon of war.
I did not know you were going to say that, but that fits perfectly to what I just said.
I didn't know I was going to say it either, but when you just said that, I jumped on it.
So you just know these facts off the top of your head?
I do.
Oh my God. That's really impressive, Matt.
Thank you. Now, the whole tactical fitness subject here is that one of the pillars we have is physical fitness. And tactical fitness is one of my oldest articles I wrote. It's probably due for an update, but it's a combination of disciplines. It's what separates it from what most people will think of as far as fitness is that tactical fitness, as I talk about it, is a combination of things like strength, endurance, speed, flexibility, and a person who ascribes himself or describes himself as a tactical athlete is really a generalist.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really good at any one particular thing. They're good at several things, but not amazing. They can probably sprint well, but they're not an Olympic level sprinter. And, I asked Rob Shaw once, he's the owner of Mountain Tactical Institute, who I've bought a couple of their training programs, that are really effective. I asked him kind of his approach to this because he specializes in training tactical athletes. So the quote I've got here is, from a fitness programming perspective, a tactical athlete's fitness must cover a much more broad array of fitness demands. Their fitness demands are much more multimodal. Green athletes, for example, need high relative strength, which means strength per body weight, high sprint-based work capacity, tactical agility, endurance for running and rucking, and chassis integrity, which means core.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most tactical athletes cannot predict the tactical situation they face, and thus their programming must be broader and embrace more fitness attributes than more narrow sport or competition athletes who can predict what they will face in competition and then program accordingly.
So what exactly is a tactical athlete?
So in this case, a tactical athlete means military, police, firefighter. Rob actually, I highlighted it here. This particular quote, he talks about a green athlete as a color.
Right.
And his color coding system, which has green, blue, black, red, lots of things. Green indicates infantry,
Okay.
land-based special operations, wildland firefighters, and rural law enforcement.
Okay.
Where someone who is blue in his case might be, infantry, but with swimming. So like more like Navy special operations.
Oh, okay.
Or red is like fire and EMS kind of things. And they all have subtly different in his eyes. To me, with the Everyday Marksman concept, where we're all kind of trying to be generalists and talk about rucking and land navigation, green seems to be the most similar.
Okay. I agree with this quote. I think it can apply to everyday people like me as well. I'll admit, I don't love cardio as much as I used to. I used to run marathons, and first of all, I can never see myself doing that again. That was a different time. I love lifting weights now. That's my preference. But I will admit, I'm the first to bail on my cardio after I do my weight training, because you do weight training before you do cardio. And some days I just have to force myself to do it. But lately I've realized I have been slacking. And I think in order for me to be more of a well-rounded athletic human, I do need to work on some cardio, some running. And that's why I'm making myself do it more.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a target for everybody. I mean, to be someone who can both lift, ruck, sprint, climb, survive tough environments, like that all ties back to that gear hierarchy. Like if you're going to buy all the stuff to help you survive and fight, then you physically need to be able to also survive and perform in those environments.
Yeah. I mean, I can only fight off the zombies for so long. Eventually I just need to run away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rule number 1.
Cardio.
So in this episode now, we're going to talk about 3 reasons to be fit. And I'm sure these are going to be somewhat obvious to everybody, but sometimes it's just nice to have someone lay it out for you and say it in a different way.
I mean, besides the obvious of wanting to look attractive.
Well, yeah. I mean, be hot by accident.
Exactly.
Be fit on purpose.
Yes.
All right. So to the meat of this, there's 3 reasons or domains that we're going to talk about here that you should keep in mind. And we're not talking about vanity. The idea here is not to be swole to impress, anyone. We're talking about nitty gritty reasons to be fit for everyday life, especially in an emergency like scenario X. So the 3 domains that I've got here are combat capability, health and durability, and developing mental grit. And I know not everything we're going to say here applies to only muscular strength and endurance. Fitness is a holistic concept that has a lot of aspects to it. So we're going to touch on a lot of these as we go. Obviously, neither of us are trained certified health professionals, though, we have read a lot. We've talked to a lot of people. We've experimented.
Oh, I've done a lot of experimenting.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into the first one, which is combat capability here. Now, I want to open up this one with a couple of examples.
Okay.
You used to be a marathon runner, so I'm
Yes.
sure you know the history of marathon going back to the Greeks. But actually, I'm going to start with 1982 in the Falklands War. Now, I'm not going to get to a lot of the political stuff that happened in all this, but the summary of this was a conflict between the UK and Argentina over a couple British territories in the South Atlantic. It lasted about 74 days before Argentina surrendered. And the reason I'm going to talk about this is the actions of the British troopers on the ground were just a testament to their level of physical fitness.
Tell me more.
So I'm actually not going to tell you this. I'm going to borrow this from a report that the British did as an after action several years later, where it's illustrated kind of a subset of this. So I get this quote again from a British paper. Here we go.
Read it with a British accent.
No.
Okay.
The British soldiers during the Falklands conflict did a remarkable job of carrying heavy loads on their backs over distance and during adverse weather conditions. A good example of this physical endurance was the 42 Commando of the Royal Marines. The Commandos landed at San Carlos, carrying approximately 120 to 145 pounds of equipment per man. A typical load consisted of 2 mortar rounds at 26 pounds, personal weapons and ammunition, 50 pounds, 2 water bottles, food for 48 hours, sleeping bag, shelter, spare clothing, and other special equipment required by the individual or his squad. With this load, the 42 Commando made the Big Yomp, which was a forced march, of 80 miles across the Falklands. The Yomp was made in 3 days across boggy and wet ground during wet and cold weather.
Oh my goodness.
Now, there's similar stories about this all over the place and not everybody made it through. Like there was a people who dropped, not going to say dropped dead, but like
somebody might have dropped dead.
They might have, but like there was a lot of cold injuries. There was a lot of weather, and it was not.
Were they sleeping at all?
I mean, you had to at some point, but like not. This was hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible weather conditions. It was cold. It was muddy. It was wet. It was a lot of weight to carry over distance on foot in 3 days.
Wow.
And then you had to arrive and fight.
Yeah. Wow.
So that is a...
Well, I'm not ready to do that.
I would wager most people aren't. And to be fair, this is a British Commando unit who is known for doing their tabbing, which is another we call rucking. They call tabbing, which is tactical advance to battle.
Okay.
And they're known for doing this. It's part of their culture. Same goes for U.S. Special Forces. Another example, though, I'll give is Mogadishu, 1993, the whole Black Hawk Down incident.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's this thing called the Mogadishu Mile, which has been kind of pop culturized. The movie did a version of it. But the bottom line was that, at the tail end of this battle, they've been going for 24 hours overnight, shooting it out. Undersupplied, underhydrated, no food. They didn't expect they were going to be doing this. They had to get out, and they couldn't get on the vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So while the movie made it seem like this group of Rangers and Delta Force ran out of the city, they didn't. And they walked, but they walked tactically, doing fire maneuver, taking cover. And they did this for almost 3 miles after fighting for almost 24 hours, being injured, dehydrated, lack of sleep, lack of food. And that's not the kind of thing that someone can just do if they're not in good physical shape or mental shape.
Yeah, definitely. I know you mentioned, we're going to touch on this later, but the whole mental grit aspect
absolutely
plays a part here. Because, how many times would you want to stop and quit and just give up in those conditions? But they found a way.
Yeah, you found a way. You have to dig down.
Right.
So that's rule number 1 here, combat capability. Your level of physical fitness. I'm going to emphasize fitness, not just strength. Strength matters, but so does all aspects of fitness. That is how you're going to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
It is if you can't carry your gear, over distance, then you're going to have a problem. So the example I opened this episode with, kind of telling a little story about scenario X, but just let's put a number on it. Let's say you're carrying 50 pounds of equipment between your rifle, your clothes, your load carrying kit, your magazines, water, food, shelter, all that stuff, 50 pounds. And it sounds like a manageable number. I'm sure you've worn a 50-pound backpack at some point in your life. Have you?
Probably.
You're probably on a backpacking trip or something.
My ruck plate is only 20 pounds.
That's true. Mine's 30.
Yeah.
But so 50 pounds.
I mean, my toddler will be 50 pounds soon, and he makes me carry him.
That's true. So 50 pounds. Now, most people say, all right, 50 pounds, I can do that. But now you got to wear it for 14 hours. And you have to walk for 6 of those hours.
That's tough.
You know, or let's go one step beyond that. This is just in a general kind of patrol thing. You're carrying 50 pounds of gear, and so you need to walk for 6 miles as you go around patrol. What happens if you actually get in a firefight? Now it's not just walking. You have to sprint 10 yards, drop to the ground, fight, get back up and sprint. And if you're too slow,
you're dead.
You're dead. You're going to get shot.
And now it's raining.
Yeah.
Or hailing.
And now it's rain. It's hailing. The terrain sucks. And you have to run uphill.
Don't slip and fall and hurt your knee or your ankle or something, because you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I did find another example talking about this. This is from Grenada, when we got engaged there. And here we go. This is a quote from a soldier in Grenada. It said, "We attacked to secure the airhead. We were like slow-moving turtles. My rucksack weighed 120 pounds. I would get up and rush for 10 yards, throw myself down, and couldn't get back up. I'd rest for 10 to 15 minutes, struggle to get up, go 10 yards, and collapse. After a few rushes, I was physically unable to move, and I am in great shape. Finally, after I got to the assembly area, I shucked my rucksack, was able to fight, but I was totally drained." Now, the lesson from this one is partly you should be getting into a firefight with 120 pounds on you, but even very physically fit people who are airborne, Rangers, all these other areas who are relatively young and in fighting shape are struggling to do this.
Right. So how would we stack up?
Right. How is the average person who gets caught in emergency going to stack up? 120 pounds was miserable for someone who's in great shape. So if you're carrying 50 pounds, how are you going to do?
Right.
So this is why the new Army Combat Fitness Test has a lot of components to it now, with things like sprint, drag, carry, where it is testing these components that are not just push-ups, sit-ups, and a mile and a half run.
Well, that's good.
So that's rule number one, is that frankly, if you're not physically fit in strength and endurance, then you're a liability.
So how would you know if you're capable of doing these things unless you just go out and do it?
That's how you do it.
Right. Because you can go to the gym and bench press however much you bench press, or squat however much you squat. But
So, I mean, look, the Everyday Marksman does have some physical fitness standards that we published last year in 2021. I can't believe it's already been that long. And there are some rough guidelines to do it. But the reality is nobody is going to be able to do, very, very few people are going to be able to do everything really well. Unless someone, this is their profession, what they do all the time. But at least it's something to know this is a track you should be on, and to know that you're working on it. There's a really good quote, and we're going to bring up the book later in Body by Science. It talks about maintenance isn't a thing. When it comes to training like this, you're either progressing or you're regressing.
Okay.
There is no such thing as, oh, I'm good enough, I'm going to sit here and maintain it. That's not how this works. So, and I would say, based on my experiences with some small unit tactics training and reading others talk about this, there is way too much emphasis on the strength. A lot of people, including me included, because I like lifting things.
Me too.
Overemphasize the picking up heavy stuff and putting it back down, thinking, oh, I'm in great physical shape. But yeah, I can't sprint like I used to. I can't sprint on a rowing machine, the ways I was doing when I was training for that. And the reality is that's probably more important.
Right.
The short-term strength to pick up a lot of extra stuff is nice, but you have to carry it and move it and not be exhausted by the time you're done doing it.
Very true. Actually, I have a story that is kind of similar. This was back when I was in college, and my roommate had been visiting me back home, and my mom she dropped us off about a mile away because there was a lot of traffic, and we had all of our luggage, and we had to walk a mile back to our dorm. And my friend struggled so much. She was out of breath. She was having the hardest time. She said to me, wow, like, you're in such great shape and I'm not. And she did something about it, and she started exercising because she could not keep up in a real world scenario.
And add to that, I know the town that you went to college in was not the nicest in the country.
Nope.
And, if that's nighttime and you're moving 1 mile, dragging a bag behind you, and you're exhausted, that makes you a prime target.
Oh, I wouldn't go anywhere at night in that area.
Yeah.
Oh, smart enough to not do that.
Good. And that's why you're here.
Yes.
But yeah, so that you can see the example though of like, it's not just about in the moment being able to execute the thing, it's then executing the thing and then still having reserves left.
True.
Or recovering fast enough to then go perform more.
It's true.
Which gets to this next point here about health and durability, which I think this is another huge component of it. And I got a quote here that I'm gonna play. So this comes from Doc Larson of One Shepherd. And a few weeks ago, I did a live stream with Doc and Brent 0331 and Les from Pegasus Test. And we were talking about aspects of your Scenario X team. And the topic was actually about equipment, but then during the course of the conversation, fitness came up because one of the watchers who was watching the live stream made a comment about how few people are qualified for military service these days. This is what Doc said.
A lot of physical fitness isn't really about getting the mission done, guys. It's about surviving the wound or surviving the harsh weather or whatever it is. And it's the ability to survive that and bounce back and come back into the fight.
So when he said that, I kind of took mental note of it. And then as I was going back editing the clips for YouTube, I heard this one again and was like, oh, man, we got to talk about this one. What do you think about that?
I think he makes a really good point. I'm trying to think if there's any scenarios that applies to me where I've experienced something like that. I'm thinking back to my marathon running days. I did the Chicago Marathon and it was record hot weather in October. We're talking almost 100 degrees. And it's the people were dropping left and right, passing out. And I just had to rely on my training and just be tough it out and kind of face the elements there. I mean, it's not a 100% perfect analogy, but I mean, right now I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have a lot of tactical experience, but no, I think his quote's valid. What do you think?
I think it's something that we don't talk about, honestly. And we kind of just touched on this with the last part about combat capability. But I think too many times we focus so much on that, we forget about it's also about the recovery piece.
Right.
And so sitting in front of us is one of our favorite books on fitness, Body by Science by Doug McGuff and John Little. And there was a quote that you and I both remembered out of this one.
Right.
That just seemed very appropriate to the topic.
And I will go back to, at the time, I was a long distance runner. I did spin class, pretty much all the cardio classes, and I didn't really weight train. But this quote resonated with me so much. I knew I had to make a shift. I mean, I think Matt's going to read it here for you in a second, but what it basically is saying is, hey, the state that you are at, if you're in a catastrophic accident and you're hospitalized, you're in an intensive care unit, the state that you're currently at, you're just going to deteriorate from there. And the amount of muscle that you have on your body really will determine how long you can survive in that type of a situation. And I thought to myself, I don't have enough muscle. I'm a dead woman. So I got on that right away.
I'm not sure I need to read the quote anymore.
No, read it.
All right, here we go. It's on page 99. More muscle can save your life. The medical literature affirms the absolute role an increased muscle mass plays to one's benefit during life-threatening situations. A lot of beneficial effects of strength training come from the fact that the organs of the body increase their functional capacity to track one-to-one with increases in muscle mass. As an example, if you were in a severe traffic accident and had to be admitted to an intensive care unit, the start point from which you would atrophy all of your organs is predicated on your degree of muscle mass. In other words, how long it takes before you reach multi-system organ failure and die is directly linked to your level of muscle mass, because all of your other organs' weights are going to be proportional to that. So basically exactly what you just said. And I liken this almost to ballistics in a rifle. Mm-hmm. I write a lot about marksmanship and ballistics, and the same kind of a similar point there, though much simplified, is when you fire a gun and that bullet leaves the muzzle, that's all the velocity it's ever going to have. Like that is it's never going to speed up and get better from there. So it's going to go as far as it can, and from that point. Mm-hmm. And there will be some point in the distance where it's just not effective anymore. And I think what this book is saying and kind of the attitude here is your level of fitness ultimately determines how long you're going to live in an emergency.
Yeah. And if we're talking about this scenario X, if scenario X happens 10 minutes from now, the current state that I'm in is the best I'm ever going to be,
Mhm.
because if I can't get my 155 grams of protein every day, I'm not going to sustain my muscle. I mean, maybe I'll lose a little extra body fat, but I'm probably going to lose a lot of muscle as well.
Yeah. I think that's a really important thing too, is I think a lot of people assume that they're going to get in better health condition and they're going to exercise more when this all happens, you know. But if scenario X happens tomorrow, you know, okay, yeah, there's a little bit you could probably do as far as body fat percentage, or hey, we're going to be doing a lot more walking, so you'll get some better cardio there. But we're not going to be able to go lift weights.
No.
You know, we're not going to be able to get under the barbell routinely and go.
And we're not going to be able to sustain our food intake, especially protein.
Yeah. And your nutritional requirements are going to be reduced. This goes back to a story I remember hearing. I mentioned this in another article one time from Fieldcraft Survival, one of their older episodes where Mike Glover and Kurt were talking about Ranger Body, where all these guys who are going through Ranger School with them, and you know, by the time everybody got out of Ranger School, they looked the same. They were all not that they were emaciated, but they all just had this lean, kind of skinny look to them. But even the guys who showed up with tons of muscle mass, like the bodybuilder types, it just melted away, and it was really bad for them because they couldn't sustain the protein requirements.
Well, that's like years of hard work.
Yeah. And it just melted away. And the guys who'd show up who didn't have enough strength to begin with just didn't make it. So all it come back to how strong and fit you are right now will determine how long you're going to survive if the emergency happens to you tomorrow.
Right.
And you listening to this, how long do you think that would be for you? Dramatic pause. All right, let's go into the third point here, developing mental grit. So this is the last point, and I thought this one was interesting to talk about because it's not explicitly, fitness related, like what you think of as traditional physical fitness. But I thought it was important to talk about because, of the things you talked about this earlier, running marathons, and that you developed this sense of just dig down and do it. And I think this is a unique characteristic of people who do a lot of physical training, who push their bodies and push limits and deal with discomfort and get better for it. In a way, that's a systematic way of stressing yourself and recovering from stress, and stressing yourself and and progressively doing that more and more. So then when you actually face another stressful situation which challenges your discipline or challenges your mental fortitude, you have a lot of experience pushing through that to be able to stay successful and focused.
I would 100% agree with that. And actually, I was thinking about, yes, with marathon training, when you're running the actual marathon, you're going to hit that wall. Your legs hurt, your feet hurt, everything hurts. You want to stop, and you have that mental toughness that says, absolutely not, I'm going to finish this race. And it's not easy, but it actually applies right now to my weight training. And I think that's why I've been really successful with the weight training is I am one of those people that I understand, especially after doing the big 5, I understand what muscle failure feels like. And my last 1 to 2 reps, I am struggling. I don't go to complete failure, but because I understand what that feels like, I really do push myself. And I'm sure my facial expressions are quite lovely to all my gym goers, sorry, but I've come to actually really enjoy and like that feeling of just really pushing and really, really forcing myself and using that mental toughness of, yes, I realize it's hard, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Or, when I'm taking my toddler on a walk around the neighborhood and he refuses to walk and I have to carry him a mile even after my workout and my muscles are exhausted, and I have to dig into that mental toughness of, I'm not getting this kid home any other way, so I got to figure it out.
So to be clear, you mentioned the big 5. So in the Body by Science book, which I have a review on the website, by the way, but he talks about his workout template as a big 5. And really it's 5 compound movements that are just taken to absolute failure. I'm not going to give away everything. Please go check out the book. It's worth a read.
I mean, it's done safely on equipment. You're not using barbells or dumbbells because that could be dangerous.
He does give you protocol for doing that, but
you
don't take it to absolute failure.
You can use like those machines, like Nautilus machines.
Yeah. But yeah, so this comes up all the time with people who want to do things like go ruck events, marathons, how tactical games, like anything that's going to be meant to challenge yourself and push you past the limit. And I think there's a lot of people in the shooting community who skip all of that for the sake of doing the fun part to them, which is just go shoot. They do entertainment, as I would say, where they go take training courses about teaching how to shoot better, but they don't put in the work in other areas to be successful.
Okay.
And that's going to hurt them. That's the mission capability. That's poor health. That's, you haven't really got the mental grit. You're just showing off that you got a bunch of money and time.
I don't know. Maybe people don't think about this whole scenario X because they think, oh, they'll just rely on other people to take care of them.
Yeah.
And that's completely the opposite of how I think. Like, I want to be able to add some value to whatever situation I'm in. I mean, if you're there, obviously, I know I can rely on you, but I also need to know I can take care of myself, take care of my son, take care of my poor 13-year-old injured dog.
Yeah. And to go back to what Mike Moore said a long time ago on another interview, talking about survival and that mindset, is that some people, they just haven't got the mindset and they're not going to make it. And any extra time and effort you spend trying to help them get through it ultimately is going to cost you time and resources and potentially drag you down too. That sounds harsh.
Yeah.
But that's his observation of people in survival situations, that some people just aren't going to do it because they've never challenged themselves. They've never developed that mental grit, that character, that fortitude that routinely challenging yourself can do. And fitness is one of those ways that you can do that.
I love fitness.
Me too. All right. So to wrap this one up, there's a lot of things we didn't cover. Actually, the Army has a whole field manual all about this. Specifically, it was in October 2020. Shout out John Simpson sent me a copy of this a while ago. But Field Manual 7-22 is all about holistic health and fitness. It's 244 pages. I will eventually write a review of this on the website. But it covers a lot of aspects like nutrition, sleep. All these things are important to get squared away now, because for the same reason that you mentioned, that whatever you start with now that's your starting point and it's not going to get any better from there. It means you really should be putting in all the effort to do as good a job as you can today.
So would you say that people should be concerned or imagining these what if scenarios and constantly worried that the world's going to end, zombies are coming? I mean, or do you think there's a more realistic day-to-day approach they can think about when it comes to fitness and health? So,
I mean, that's a really great example. I like to, or a great question. I like to use scenario X as morely as an illustration of this is what could happen. How would you deal with this? But you can't control that outcome. And I think from a mental health standpoint, you're far better off focusing on the things that you can control and improving those. And what you can't control is your own progress.
True.
So I would say don't even worry about from it comes to a health and fitness standpoint, don't even worry about scenario X. Don't worry about the zombie apocalypse. Don't worry about World War III. You cannot control those things. What you can control is writing down what you eat and making good decisions every day. You can control logging your workouts and tracking your progress consistently across those workouts. You can control how you're working out and what you're doing and where you're improving. Focus on and you can control how much sleep you get.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, unless you have a young child or something else, which you can't always control your sleep there. Yeah. But you can control those four things: nutrition, your health, your exercise routines, your sleep. That's 3. Did I say 4?
Stress.
Stress. Okay, you can worry about your stress. Those are absolutely within your control, and by putting in the work to routine and maintaining those, you're going to improve. Just work to be better.
Yeah, that's what I try to do.
Yeah, and you're better at it than me.
Well, thank you.
All right, well, that's going to wrap this up. So, rewind that one. Well, that's going to wrap this one up. Thank you for listening. Allison, thanks for joining.
I love talking about fitness. Have me on anytime.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
All right. You can find today's show notes at everydaymarksman.co. There to find all the entire website. And while you're there, hit that big green subscribe button. Join the mailing list. That way you get heads up on all the new episodes, videos, articles, and everything else.
Bye.
Bye.